Hello, welcome back to my channel. I have done this in many videos, but I realized I don't have a dedicated singular video for this technique. So I'm putting it here for those of you who want to be able to go back to it. This is my spot concealing technique, okay? I'm actually in the middle of filming another video right now, which is the base, how to achieve the base makeup that makeup artist Nina Park so flawlessly creates on her celebrity clients. So if you want to check that out, I'll put it up here. Anyway, we're gonna get right into it. We're just gonna jump right in. So the first thing that we want to talk about is brushes. Okay, so we are spot concealing, which means that we are focusing on using foundation as an evener, a skin tone evener, okay? We are not using super full coverage foundation to like pile on in areas where we need a lot of coverage if we have acne, okay? You can tell, probably, I have very light coverage. You can see all my little breakouts. All my tiny little breakouts are popping. That's what we're gonna take care of today. For brushes, when you are spot concealing, you want teeny tiny, okay? You want teeny tiny. These are some of my favorites and I'll tell you why. So the first two that I wanna highlight are my Refer 23, which is super teeny tiny, and my Refer 03, which is basically the same thing, but just a little bit larger, basically like a pencil brush type situation. These are fabulous. I love Refer brushes in general. They are some of my absolute favorites. And these were probably the original like teeny tiny brushes that just totally changed my makeup game, especially when it came to spot concealing. Because when you have tiny little spots, you need to have like a tiny little precise applicator to be able to apply a fuller coverage in that tiny little spot so that you can maintain lighter coverage in other areas. This is a trick that I learned from Lisa Eldridge many years ago. If you apply a fuller coverage in a smaller area but keep the rest of the face looking lighter coverage, it kind of tricks the eye into thinking that your skin is flawless overall. Those are Lisa's words, all right? And Lisa is the queen, so we respect the queen. So I love those. Those are fabulous. Similarly, I just recently received this brush in a package. This is the Sigma Angela Bright brush, which is really, really great. You can see, it's the AB6 brush. You can see it's kind of like somewhere in between those, actually, right in between. So these are all like kind of in the same vein, and this is nice and soft as well. I believe the Refer brushes are natural hair, and the Sigma brush is synthetic. So if that makes a difference for you, just depends on what you're going for. I kind of like to use natural hair brushes, especially when it's not tiny. I feel like I don't know, it's not that big a difference, but whatever. Anyway, next up, for larger areas, larger spot concealing, if you have, say, like a little chunk, like, I don't know, if you have something like this, but like maybe a little bit bigger, then I love this brush from BK Beauty. This is the 210 brush, which is this really beautiful, soft, domed brush. So it's kind of like the same idea, but it's a little bit more round. This is also a synthetic brush. It does a lot of the blending for you, which is so fabulous. That's something that I love about it. You can kind of just like focus the product right on the tip and then pat, 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 and it does so much blending. So I love that one. And then for even larger areas, if you have like maybe a cluster and you just don't need something that's this tiny for it, then I also from the Angela Bright collection, this is the AB5 brush. Beautiful synthetic little domed blender. And then we also have the Refer 13 mini. I don't know if the mini brushes are still available. If they are, I will try to link them. But these are like mini versions of their other eye brushes, which are fabulous. But you can find they have such a beautiful selection of just tiny brushes. So think tiny, okay? Think tiny. Next, what you're gonna need is everything that you've already used on your face. So hopefully you have a concealer that is a little bit more full coverage, okay? What I like to do is, depending on the coverage that you need, you could use your foundation, you could use a concealer. If you have a brightening concealer, then you're gonna wanna use that. Like if you use a brightening concealer for underneath your eyes or something, then you're gonna wanna use that, and then whatever you use to conceal for your face. For me, typically, I use a brightening concealer like the Rare Beauty one, and then I have my Kosas concealer. These are typically what I use. Like this one is for my face and then this one is for underneath my eyes to brighten. So I like to have those two as options. I'll put a couple of those out. This month is Drugstore July, so I'm not using my like typical product. But I also didn't highlight like crazy underneath my eyes because I'm doing something that's very, very light coverage. So if you are someone who highlights like crazy in certain areas of your face, just keep in mind that you're gonna want your brightening concealer as well. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear Concealer. This is in the shade Ivory, which is very close to my skin tone. It might be like a little bit dark, maybe like half a shade dark, I don't know. No, it's like pretty spot on. Yeah. This is a very full coverage foundation. Concealer. It's a concealer. Very full coverage. Now you'll notice that I have swatches on my hand. Swatches, okay? These are all the products that I used on my face today. So this was my contour. This was my bronzer. This was, it was a blush that I technically mixed with a little bit of pink, but this will be fine. It's the e.l.f. blush, and then my concealer. So what I'm going to do is for each area of my face, I am mixing a custom concealer shade, okay? So I'm not just going in with this one color in the areas where I put my blush and my bronzer. Why did I not conceal before doing those things? Because I used all cream products. I wanted to place all of my cream products first down so that I could blend them flawlessly, and then go in and do the little details by mixing my custom shades. If I were to go in with a concealer and conceal all those little areas and then go over top and try to blend on top of that with creams or even powder after setting, a lot of the time, like, you have to be very, very careful not to remove that coverage. So this is a really great way to promote coverage in a very specific area without disrupting it later on, okay? So I'm going to start off with my 03. I just love this. I'm gonna give you a deep zoom. Real deep zoom. Okay, so let's start off here. So this is like pretty much my foundation color. I didn't really use anything in this area. So I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of the concealer on that brush. Okay. And I'm gonna slowly just kind of like build it up. Now I'm placing quite a bit down. Now something you can do is just go in with your finger and pat it a little bit. Sometimes I find that that can remove a little bit of coverage. So sometimes I like to have like this little guy, like the 13 mini, to just blend around the edges. So I just like built up that coverage directly on that spot, and then I'm just buffing around the edges into the skin. Okay. So we're getting maximum coverage in the area that we need it. Do the same thing right here. Sometimes all you need is to just dot. Just a dot. You don't even really need to like blend. I didn't go in with any additional product. Now, for this little area right here, I have a few little spots. I'm gonna switch to an even tinier brush. I'm gonna go in with my 23 brush. Now I have blush in this area. So I'm gonna take a teeny bit, the teeniest bit of this orange blush. This is Bahamas from e.l.f. I'm gonna mix it with my concealer to make it a little more peach so that it matches that area. Okay, so I'm not even like, it's not even that much more peach, but I just want to get it closer. So like in this area, this is kind of an area where the blush blends into my foundation shade, right? So I'll pick up a little bit more concealer for here. We're paint mixing, okay? This is artistry. And I'm gonna mix a little bit more blush in for up here. I'm just patting tiny little pats of coverage. Not even really need to, like, pointillism. Like, I don't even really need to blend. I'm just like, doot, doot, doot. That's part of the blend. Okay, do you see that difference already? Like if I step back a little bit, do you see that? Not at all, right? Just kind of looks like part of my skin. All right, so I got some stuff going on over here. So I'm gonna go back to the concealer. Still with that tiny brush. And this is going to be time consuming. It's gonna be real time consuming, especially the first time you do it, because you're gonna be having to think about what colors to blend together, how you're applying your technique. But the more you practice it, the more you do it, the faster it'll go. Because you'll be able to look at your face and be like, oh, I use my blush here. So let me just mix a little bit of this in with my blush. So that's what I'm doing up here now. Mixing a little more blush in with the concealer. Pressing into these areas. Going back to just concealer for right here. Coming together, right? Coming together. All right, one problem area that I have right now is that I scratched my nose. So I'm using just concealer in this area. And it's pretty like noticeable. So I'm going in with like a decent amount. Boo, leave Ziva alone. My cats are fighting. Boo, why are you so rude? Same thing with the forehead. These little spots, just concealer. So I'm gonna focus on my forehead right now. This is such a problem area. I'm gonna kind of just like pat a bunch down. And I'm using just the concealer right now. Going in with that blender and just kind of like figure eighting between all of those little areas. Again, just pressing that concealer into the skin around the edges. And then as I start to go up a little bit higher, that's where I used my bronzer. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of bronzer. I'm like right here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of concealer and I'm just gonna mix this together. You might wonder like, why are you not going in directly with just bronzer? And it's because when you put the bronzer down, it shears it out a little bit, right? So it's not going to be exactly that color. Plus, mixing it in with the concealer gives it a little bit more coverage. Okay, so we're look at this, slowly erasing. It's like magic. Spot concealing is literally magic that just takes forever. It's magic that takes forever. And then as I get out to the outer perimeter of my forehead, I'm using a little bit more bronzer because that's where I tend to want a little bit more sculpting. So I probably used a little more warmth there. And you can kind of like go and do like a whole little section, just like do 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 do, you know? And then go back. Don't let it set for too long. Letting a concealer sit for a little while, it can be good because it can allow it to set. But if you let it sit for way too long, it can end up just kind of like setting in like a patch. So you want to find that like kind of sweet spot. Okay, so still just using my bronzer for these areas. Okay, this is a tricky spot. Because if you look, I have a breakout over here. And I have some redness and happening over here as well, all around this area. So it's very handy to have a hand mirror and another mirror. If you do your makeup in the bathroom, have a hand mirror so that you can look into the other mirror and you can really see what you're doing. I'm using just concealer for this little area right here. And in here, because I pretty much only have foundation in that area. And I'm going back in with a little blender, blending around. So you get the idea, right? You're just slowly placing a tiny bit of coverage and just making sure that it's not like, it doesn't look like a big spot, right? And then as I get into this area, I used bronzer, I used contour. So I kind of feel like that doesn't look too bad. Like I pretty much nailed that side. I feel like that looks pretty good. Let's check out the other side. So now I got to do my temple over here. So I'm going to mix bronzer and concealer again. I'm going to switch to my 03 brush because these are a little bit larger. Using a very light hand, I'm making sure to hold my brush pretty far back, which will also really help with the blend and the application. Getting further in, so I'm going to go in with more bronzer. So this is obviously a time-consuming experience for the two of us right now, but if I were not explaining it to you, going through the whole explanation, this would be going a hell of a lot faster. So just remember, it takes practice. You're going to be slow the first time, but just keep at it because the results are unbelievable. Like when we zoom out a little bit and just show you the face, you're going to be like, what? Looks pretty good. I have mostly like bumps in this area. I don't really like have to spot conceal. There's this one little spot right here. So I'm going to mix some of my contour now in with my bronzer mixture because that area is more so in my contour. So I want to just kind of like cool it down a little bit. And I'm using my 03. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I made that a little too dark. So then I'll just go back in, mix that mixture, mix a little bit more concealer in. And just the lightest hand patting over that. And then I just see a teeny little spot right here and here. So deep zoom of the skin. Look at that. So good. So good. Look at that forehead. And if I give you a zoom out, flawlessness. Are you kidding me? Look at that base. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Does it look like I'm wearing a ton of makeup? Nah. Nah. Nah, it doesn't. Looks like a very beautiful natural base. You can still see little like imperfections coming through. I've got little freckles and things, which helps to kind of like help to mask those areas where you have like breakouts. If you allow some flaws to come through, like freckles or dark spots or whatever, if you don't have ridiculously full coverage on, then it just kind of like, it makes that look a little bit more natural. So you can just get away with showing a little bit more. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. So if this was a video that you have been looking for, because I know I've referenced it a lot, here is a dedicated one. This is something that you can come back to if you're ever looking for it. This is my, hands down, my like holy grail spot concealing trick. Mix it, mix it, mix it. You're an artist. Makeup is art, okay? You might not think you're an artist, but you are if you're doing your makeup. Okay, thank you. If you like this, like, subscribe, and blah, 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 blah. I'll see you in the next one, dude. I gotta go back and finish that other video, so bye.